Good afternoon, evening, whatever time you're watching this. My name is Dominic DeMaria. I am an agent with Porcupine Real Estate. And today we are doing our Upper Valley Meet the Regions of New Hampshire. And I'm joined today by Jody Underwood. Jody, if you want to give a quick bio of yourself, where do you live and how long have you been here?
Sure. I live in Croydon, New Hampshire, which is in the Upper Valley of New Hampshire. And we moved here. September will be 16 years for us that we moved up. Yeah.
Okay, and on this slide, we talk a little bit about the locations of New Hampshire. As you can see, the dots on the map there show where all of our new movers have landed, all the different towns. And in the Upper Valley area, there is quite a few. So Upper Valley can encompass, it's another area like the North Country, which is kind of floating borders. Jody, what areas of the state would you say are kind of like the edges of the Upper Valley?
Sure. So we go as far north as Lebanon and Hanover. And it's sort of distinct from how New Hampshire and Vermont considers the Upper Valley, but for our purposes, Lebanon and Hanover, not that we turn people away who are north of that, but that's our northern end. We go out to Grafton, out east and south, probably down to Alstead. So yeah, we're that whole clump around Lebanon and below, I would say. We've had a lot of movers lately in the last couple of years in Newport and Claremont. It's really obvious to me. Yeah.
I sold a house to a couple in Claremont last year, and they were thrilled about it. So, so the Upper Valley. So culture and community that goes on there. You guys have a very active community from what I've seen. Tell us a little bit about the different things that go on around your area.
Sure. I mean, just like meetups and whatnot, we have the Bardo Potluck, which is the first Saturday of every month, and we've had that for quite a long time. We get a lot of people from all around the state. We get a lot of new movers, and we get people looking at the state as well. It's just sort of amazing to me how many people just show up like that. So, and it's a very warm community. We have a nice core set of people who show up all the time. We're very welcoming, I like to think. And it's always fun. Just bring a dish, anything you want. We don't coordinate. That's one, and that's a big one. And when the weather's nice, we do it outside too, and there's usually a grill on and so on. So yeah, bring food and show up. We also have Liberty Tuesday, which is the last Tuesday of the month up in West Leb at Ziggy's Pizza. And there we get a pretty good turnout too. There was actually, a downtime when we couldn't even go there during COVID, but we've started it up since, and we get a nice turnout every month. And then finally, as official meetups go, there's the Lower Valley meetup, which we're connected to each other. That I believe is the third Thursday of the month, and it goes down. It's usually like in the winter months in Charlestown, but in the summer it's been up in Newport and Claremont also, where it's people host it, and sometimes it's in a restaurant down in Charlestown.
And just for folks who may not be familiar with this part of the state, is it how would you classify it? Is it more rural? Are there any large towns? What are the defining features of the towns?
Sure, of the area, yeah. Claremont and Newport are more highly populated. Than everything else is very rural. And you go up to Lebanon and Hanover, and that's also more populated. You'll also have a lot of engineering companies in Lebanon. So people are looking at that. We have the largest health center in the region. Like that's, Vermont and Maine as well. And that's the Dartmouth Hitchcock Medical Center. So that attracts a lot of people as well. So it's a highly educated area also. So you have a complete mix of the kinds of people you get from rural to, MDs and PhDs.
Dartmouth College is an Ivy League school, so that's another selling point for a lot of people who are interested in, the culture associated with higher learning and that kind of stuff in the towns around that.
That's right. Yeah.
And speaking of all those meetups that we brought up a minute ago, this is a great way to keep track of all of those. The fsp.org/calendar And it looks like there's quite a few things on here. This is September of this year. And Jody had mentioned to me earlier that you can actually filter this as well. I don't have a live calendar here, so we can't do it on screen, but there is a way to search by region, I
Right,
believe.
but if right next to agenda, you'll see there's a drop down, and if you click on that, you can filter on the regions.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, so any changes that come up, we like to think that the calendar is updated very regularly. We have a lot of folks at the FSP who do that, so great place to check. As far as housing in the Upper Valley, the rent, it's the same as most of the state. Right now, we are definitely in a housing crisis, I would say. There is not enough houses to go around for everyone. Prices are still fairly high as far as the national averages go, and renting can be difficult. If you were to rent, what would your advice be to somebody looking to rent before they move to that area?
I mean, Newport and Claremont, like the more populated towns are the places you're going to find rentals, even Lebanon. I'm not sure about the other ones. I think it's harder in the more rural towns because people just tend to own. I'm sure you can find them, and I think it's easier to drive around to find rentals rather than looking online. It's my guess. I'm not that experienced in it, but that's sort of how it feels to me.
Sure, and I think financing in those areas, I wouldn't think would be any different than the rest of the state. The only issues that I would think would come up on a pretty regular basis would be for VA and FHA. You are dealing with a lot more older homes because of the country and rural areas. So you may have to like do some more serious inspections just to make sure that everything looks okay. But I always recommend inspections to everybody anyways.
So there is one exception to all that, and that is if you have a large property, you're going to have a problem getting standard conventional financing. So then you would go to a local bank who is more likely to do it. So that happened to us.
a great tip. When you say large piece of land, what do you consider a large piece of land?
Probably anything over 100 acres, but maybe less. I don't know. I mean, we have over 210 acres when we bought the property. We have recently subdivided, but we just couldn't get an FHA loan. So a local bank gave us the loan.
Very good.
Less likely to get sold and passed around too, honestly.
And so talking about taxes and politics would be the next slide here. Overall, would you say that area of the state is conservative, liberal, libertarian?
Sure. So the closer you get to Vermont, the leftier you're going to be. And Lebanon and Hanover, anywhere, near colleges, you're going to find lefties, right? So that's what you're going to find in that direction. But you go to the rural towns and you're going to get conservatives all over the place. And they're probably libertarian, except they've never heard of the term, so they don't know. But, you meet them and you talk to them and it's like, yep, we're on the same page.
I even find most of the time with the liberals that I talk to that we still have quite a few things in common.
Oh, of course we do.
Just the sensibilities up here tend to be that way anyways. So.
Oh yeah, even the liberals can be pro-gun, for example, in New Hampshire. They have a hard time talking against the Second Amendment because they know it's unpopular in the state.
That's very true.
Yeah.
And then taxes. I always tell people that taxes vary wildly from town to town. I'm sure that's no exception up there. I know, for instance, in my area in the Seacoast, I can be in my town of Epping, and one town over, the Exeter taxes are twice what they are here. So.
Yep, very local. Croydon takes pride in being a low tax town, the town I live in. I mean, we're population 800. You have to realize how small we are. So even though our school costs are high and, are always going up, the town finds a way to balance that out. So far, knock on wood, we remain under $20 per thousand, and sometimes much lower than that. Yeah. But yeah, you go to the next town in either direction and it's much higher.
Yeah. Okay, and then speaking of education and schools, what can you tell us about the education options in the Upper Valley?
But we have everything up here, really. Obviously we have government schools. But within the government schools, because in the rural areas, most towns have village schools, and then they have options on how to, like, what schools to send their kids to after village school. So village schools can range. Croydon has just a K-4 school. Neighboring Grantham has K-6. But Newport has a full K-12. So, for example, on that, so that's more of a city feel, even though it's still a rural town. And it's very picturesque too, I should add. But so Croydon will tuition out, which is what we call it. We will tuition out kids to neighboring districts. And we use town tuitioning for that, which is a Northern New England tradition, been going on since like 1850 or so. And that is that the town will pay the tuition, and really we cap the tuition at some amount that parents could pay the additional amount if they choose a school that's higher. So Croydon is the freest tuitioning town in the state. Many of them, so we send our kids to private schools if the parents choose them, where many towns or districts rather would not. They're afraid to use private schools. And since we expanded to private schools, which includes religious schools, by the way, we no longer have any houses for sale. The second they go on the market, they get sold. Just to link that back. And people want that. They like school choice. But so we also, a charter school is opening up in Claremont this fall. There's a charter school in Lebanon for kids who don't fit into regular high schools, and they're both just high school level. We have a private Newport Montessori in Newport, which we send a lot of kids to from Croydon, but they are private. And then there's also a prep school called KUA, Kimball Union Academy, up in Meriden. Meriden? I think it's Meriden, New Hampshire. It's about an hour north of here, 45 minutes, but you can't get there from here, you know. Right. And we have sent kids to that school as well, where we just pay the cap. So all that is available. There are community colleges, and don't forget tech schools. That's big in New Hampshire also. So there's a tech school in both Newport and Claremont if you want your kids to learn the trades. That's where you can go to get somebody else to pay for that. They're government schools as well. There are community colleges. There's one in Claremont, and we already mentioned some of the universities in the area like Dartmouth.
And how is the homeschooling community up there?
We have a large and growing homeschool community. There's a Facebook group and a Signal group that where it's organized, hundreds of people in that group. There's also a new private learning center opening in Newport just this month also. So where you have to officially homeschool your kids, but you can take them someplace and have them have individualized learning going on, following different curricula, whatever suits the kid. So we have all of this.
Excellent. Sounds like you've got a pretty good handle on education up there in the Upper Valley.
We do.
And how about jobs and industry? I know from talking to different people throughout the state, trades, as you spoke about, the trade schools are in high demand here. I'm sure they are pretty much everywhere across America right now. But jobs and industry in that area, do you have any insight into that category?
Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned before, in the Upper Valley, in Lebanon in particular, there are large engineering companies that, people who are looking for engineering jobs could look up there. And there's a whole bunch. I mean, I can't even name them, but you can just look around up there. Certainly the health market is big here. There's a number of hospitals, all recently bought up by Dartmouth Hitchcock, but still they still exist under their own names. So there's a lot of health related, so nursing and so on. There are senior centers that, have all sorts of, I'm sure they have regular openings, because the unemployment rate, the Upper Valley is notorious for having like the lowest unemployment rate in the state, if not the country. I've seen them in like top 10 in the Lebanon area. So they can't even find people to fill the jobs that we have here. But yeah, the trades are huge. I mean, what we were talking about before, just finding that plumber to come do the work, you just got to show up and you'll get work up here for not just plumbing, but all of it, electrician and carpentry and so on. Yeah.
One thing that I've noticed too about the Upper Valley, we put together brewery trail maps for the state. and there are only like 3 breweries, and forgive me if anybody is watching that owns a brewery or works at a brewery or knows of any other breweries, but it seems like it's dangerously underdeveloped, the brewery culture up there. So I feel like that's a opportunity for somebody to open up a brewery in one of the major towns or even outside. Um, I think they
I
would do very well.
I think you're right. We're also missing, I mean, we have a decent set of restaurants up in Lebanon and Hanover. Again, that's where you find the nicer restaurants. Down closer to me, less interesting, but there's some good stuff. But there's a new speakeasy that just opened up in Claremont, where you have to like knock on a door and say a password. And I mean, it's more theater than private, but it's still cool.
Funny part is, I have heard about that all the way over here in the Seacoast. People are talking about that speakeasy over there. So
Nice.
I've actually, no joke, I've heard about it. So, and then resources and tips. As far as anyone who is interested in the Upper Valley, myself, I would be a great resource in order to get you to the right people, such as Jody. Jody is a very public figure in the Free State community, I would say. And if they would like to reach out to you to get any more information on education or anything about the meetups or anything like that, how could they reach you?
That's a good question. I would love for them to go through you and have you send them to me.
My information will be in the notes at the end of the seminar here. And resources, if you are interested in the sites around the Upper Valley, you can request a regional guide from us at our websites, porcupinerealestate.com. And we have a list of all the different restaurants and spots to go hiking and different attractions around the areas. We have one for each of the regions of New Hampshire. And as far as tips go, I always tell people to take a drive, just get in the car, ride around the area, see what jumps out to you. That's how we ended up in the Seacoast region, because we saw what we wanted, so.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's interesting. I don't know if this is a tip per se, but I remember being asked, like, what is it about Croydon? What do you like about it? And in the whole region, really. And, people talk about, oh, the lakes region, they have these big, beautiful lakes. It's like, we have lakes. They're not like Lake Winnipesaukee, but we have Sunapee. And even in our tiny town of Croydon, we have a few lakes that are vacation spots, but you don't get the tourist traffic that you get in these larger places. We also have mountains, not like the White Mountains, but we have mountains, and we're just sort of, we have everything in the Upper Valley, just not as big and not as touristy as other places. And I think that's true for most of New Hampshire. And the western part is very hilly, right? As you get closer to Seacoast, it's going to be less hilly. So you get everything out here. That's what I would say.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Jody. I don't think we had anybody joining us tonight, so we probably aren't going to have any questions. But thank you for your time. And for everybody out there watching, thank you for taking the time and watching us. Have a great evening.
Thanks for having me. Bye.